What's up, guys? Welcome to Office Hours. Right now, I am trying to deal with what's it called? This lighting. Like, I'm coming out like a Oompa Loompa right now. So, but I don't want to keep pushing off the start of this stream, so here we go. I want to see if I can fix it like really quickly though. So give me like a second. What happens if I do this? Was that slightly better? I can't tell. Looks like it's slightly better. It looks like it's slightly better. I feel like I'm gonna be slurring my words a little today. Okay. Is that like a little better? I don't want to overdo it. I guess that seems kind of better. So I'm gonna go with this. All right, here we go. All right, welcome to Office Hours. Oh, I'm exhausted. It is Tuesday and I'm already exhausted. Tuesday's my first day of the week. And I realized I actually scheduled everything like wrong from my intentions. Originally, I was trying to try to do the SAT in the morning, but because I pre-scheduled it like this, for today I'll be doing it this way. Let me just do a quick share and we're gonna get started. There we go. All right, let's get going. So I'm gonna go into the comments from YouTube first, and then any discussions from Discord that I think are noteworthy second. Here we go. Okay, looks like on YouTube there's not a lot of comments to go through, so we'll just... Actually, no, I might have already responded to some of these other ones, so I'll look at them and I'll look at everything. So here we go. Thanks, Pratham. Do I have courses to improve? No, sadly, I do not. At least not yet. While I'm talking about this, might as well mention, sorry, my view right now is messed up. So while I'm talking about this, might as well mention that I am probably going to be reducing streaming from June to August, June to September even. So then, like, my streaming activity will drop for sure. It might even go to 0 for June to August. I'm not 100% sure. I have to still figure out what my schedule will be. But after that, I'll come back hard on the streaming in fall, like maybe late. It depends because I have to like move and stuff, and you know, it's gonna be a complicated time for me. So I don't want to hard commit to any particular date. But I think ideally, I should be fully back in October. So from June to October, you'll see less activity from me, for sure. That said, in October, I do want to build out my SAT course, so that it's actually like a thing that people like, that I can like, because I end up in my streams, I end up repeating myself anyway, so might as well reduce the amount that I repeat myself by actually having a course. So that's kind of like how I want to get around to that. Okay, thank you. Let me see if I remember any other conversations that were worth it, that were interesting. So this is an interesting and kind of common question, but not super common. It's I'd say some people ask these questions, which makes sense, especially if you're younger. You know, if you're like in ninth grade and whatnot. Let me read the question out loud. I just bought the book, Lord of the Flies. Do you think that kind of book would be sufficient for practicing the SAT reading? I would say it's neither necessary nor sufficient. You don't need to read the Lord of the Flies. Okay, the articles are messing me up right now. You don't need to read Lord of the Flies to get good at the SAT, and you don't. And by reading Lord of the Flies, you don't necessarily improve on the reading for the SAT. It doesn't matter really which books you read. Okay. The first point I want to make about this is that it really depends on how you're reading things. If you're reading things and you kind of know that there are correct interpretations, like grammatically speaking and from contextually speaking, and if you're aiming at the correct interpretation, okay, and you have a source to verify your correct interpretation, then you can take reading that passage kind of like the way that you can take reading the SAT passages, right? In my streams, I do my maps of the passage where I kind of I sort of like barf out everything I remember from the passage. Like, if you're able to do some sort of point of comparison like that, then you can learn how other people are responding and reacting to the same thing that you're reading. But if you can't, then maybe you could go with things like quizzes. But the problem is, a lot of times, depending on what the quiz is, it doesn't really require. Not all quizzes require close reading, and SAT does. So you want to be able to practice reading the way that the SAT specifically tests. And the way that the SAT tests reading is actually a very good way. It's not some sort of arbitrary made up thing. It's actually, do you understand what you're reading? like it's specifically making sure you understand, what the logic is, what the inferences are, what the flow is. So if you're reading in that way, then that will help you. If not, then it won't. But people read in all sorts of ways, and a lot of times it's not very close reading. So that's my general response to that. The second thing is, this would also only help for, even if to the extent that it does help, it only helps for the literature passage, because it helps with narrative structure. It doesn't help with like scientific structure. So that was my answer. Oh, history. Oh man. Didn't I have comments on this? Let me just double check. Okay, I don't remember where I've written it. Also, my contact lenses are going crazy right now, so my eye hurts. Looks like I have to replace these. Give me a second. I'm just sort of hoping it passes over. Okay. It's functional. Hey, good morning. Good morning. So I am now thinking about history passages, and here's my quick response to history passages, which is for history passages, I would say it's the least. I would say it's the least high priority for international students. You should just learn to. You should just learn to kind of deal with the uncertainty of the history passages. And focus more on getting all the science passages right first. So I would say it's lower priority. Now that we have that out of the way, I'll just add some comments on history passage, which is first, what's up, Mexico? With the history passage, first thing you want to do is check your understanding of U.S. history. Like, if you do not understand, okay, the history of democracy, the history of various social movements like abolitionism, like we're anti-slavery, right? The history of, I mean, even federalism, starting back at the very beginning, like federalism, like versus like have state establishing like a national government, that particular issue, abolitionism and the Civil War, early feminism, to actually gaining the right to vote. Let me think. A little bit of modern U.S. history as well helps, like after World War II, the establishment of like the global order, like with like the United Nations and stuff. Some post-colonial perspectives, like what. Like, I'm specifically remembering the South Africa passage, but yeah, some post-colonial perspectives. Basically, you want to understand what kind of debates there were. Debates that sort of aid our sort of modern understanding, or at least the modern American understanding of democracy, right? What kind of debates there were in our history. Like, you need to kind of go through the sort of themes of all those debates. If I had a ready resource for you guys, I would share it, but I don't. So, understanding the background is not uber necessary. It's like, but if you can start learning some of that history now, it will benefit you. Okay, because it helps you understand because you know what kinds of arguments came out in the past. Then when you read these passages, you can kind of imagine what kind of arguments might be possible as you're reading them. Also, it would make you more interested in these passages. It's going to make you more engaged when you're reading these passages. So, I think that's pretty important for the. I think it's really important for the history passage. If you want to stay sane, if you want to get a really good score. The other thing is your grammatical abilities of parsing sentences that are really difficult. For that, it actually does help to read some poetry, because it's so hard to parse old poetry, like reordering sentences to make it turn into a complete sentence. It actually would help you to do poetry, because it's so hard that it would actually make this particular like the older language over here a little easier. But going straight to poetry might feel like just being pushed into the deep end of the pool. So, and it is sort of an extreme option. So what you could do is when you take a history passage, you could stop. Okay, you could stop. After stopping time, after scoring yourself, after doing everything, just go back to the passage and reread it. And every single sentence, okay, that has like an unusual sentence structure, where it's like kind of written in a way that you wouldn't write it. I'm not talking about the vocabulary. Avoid the vocabulary. Forget the vocabulary. I mean, you could just rewrite the sentence so that it flows in a more modern way. Okay, so you can modernize the grammar of every sentence, and it would really help if you had like a sort of right answer sheet for this. But I don't have those ready right now, so you won't be able to use anything I can do. But if I were you, I would definitely like restructure all of these sentences and then try to see, try to see where I feel like I don't know how, like try to find the sentences that I feel like I don't know how to modernize. And then I would bring that to Saul, the streamer, and ask him like, how do you modernize this sentence? How do you rewrite the sentence in a way that sounds more natural to our modern ears? So if you actually brought those sentences to the Discord server and just asked them out loud, asked them out publicly in the SAT channel, I'm sure that would actually be pretty fun for other students to try. And also, it would improve your grammar as well. So let me give you an example of what I mean by modernizing. If I say something like, it's the morning, so I'm not feeling very creative. Let me actually just pull up a random history passage like right now, because I don't think it'll take that much time. Okay, so I'm looking at. Let me just share my screen. Give me a sec. That's a hard sentence, but not particularly unmodern. So let me find something here. This is a really hard sentence. Let me see if I can modernize it. But this is actually a hard sentence rather than an unmodern sentence. When was it written? 1854? Wow. Okay. Well, let's just modernize any random hard sentence. The only conclusion that can be fairly and honestly drawn from that legislation is that it was the policy of the fathers of the Republic to prescribe a line of demarcation between free territories and slaveholding territories by a natural or geographical line, being sure to make that line correspond, as near as might be, to the laws of climate, of production, and probably of all those other causes that will control the institution and make it either desirable or undesirable to the people inhabiting the respective territories. Now, for me, when I read this sentence, like, grammatically, I parse it very quickly. Like, it sounds normal to me. It's not actually particularly hard for me to read this sentence. I don't remember struggling on this sentence when I was reading this. But I'm, like, sure that a lot of you guys are struggling. It's a long sentence. So the thing to do here is, for this, it's less of a modern or old, like archaic, like grammatical structure issue. This is more of a like complexity of sentence structure issue for you guys. You need to be able to separate like parallel structure, like coordinate clauses, okay, or coordinate phrases, even like coordination. You may be able to like track them in your head very, very quickly and easily, and then modification, you have to be able to track modifiers and separate them very, very quickly. So this is not something I can teach in just a quick stream. I'd have to I actually wrote back in the day in 2015, I actually wrote a whole like little textbook about this. So like this is not easy to teach just like in the stream, but I would say, well, let's start with the example first, okay? How can you break this down into smaller pieces? That's the main thing. The only conclusion that can be fairly and honestly drawn. So there is one conclusion that can be fairly and honestly drawn. Okay, stop. This one conclusion is that, okay, line 16, that it was the policy of the fathers of the Republic to prescribe a line of demarcation. Okay, let's just stop there. And the only conclusion is that it was the policy of the fathers to describe a line of demarcation. Stop. Okay? And then move on to, well, what line of demarcation? What line of demarcation? This line of demarcation is the line between free territories and slaveholding territories. Stop. Now I know I'm moving on to a different modifier. So I'm saying, okay, what kind of line is this line of demarcation? Okay, this line is by a natural or a geographical line. Stop. Okay, that's the end of a different modifier. Now we're moving on to a different. Now we're moving to an adverbial modifier, talking about the intentions of the policy, the intentions of the fathers of the Republic. So the question is, how did they draw up this line? So how it was the policy of the fathers of the Republic to draw this line, being sure to make that line correspond to the laws of climate, of production, and probably all those other causes. I skipped over that double comma, you see. Because then what's that double comma saying? That's a different modifier. It's also adverbial. All that's saying is being sure to make that line correspond to the laws of climate, of production, and probably all those other causes, in a certain way. In what way? To make sure that line corresponds as nearly as possible, as close as possible. Okay, that's all that is, the double comma over there. Then finally, we have these laws of climate, of production, and probably of ... I already know that probably of, it's just a list of 3 things. It's a list of 3 things, so I don't have to memorize all of that. I just know it's a list of 3, and then I think, well, what are these 3? Let's get into it in detail. We're making this line correspond as nearly as possible to these 3 things. It corresponds to this line corresponds to climate. This line corresponds to production, and this line corresponds probably to all those other causes that will control the institution of slavery and make it either desirable or undesirable to the people inhabiting the respective territories. Basically, etc. It corresponds to etc. that's relevant for slavery. Okay. Now, for me, okay, as somebody who's done this a million times through poetry, through old passages, through like books in college, it's much easier. For you guys, it's gonna be much harder. But you do at some point need to improve this. I mean, when you go to college, you're gonna read harder things than this. So you want to build up your grammar. You want to build up your ability to parse sentences, and the way to do that is by being able to make sure that you can either modernize the structure of a sentence, which is what I was talking about at first, or in this particular example, break it down into shorter sentences that you can understand and digest one by one, and sort of ask yourself the question of, okay, what's this next part of the sentence even trying to say? It's like, and then like, what's the function of this next part of the sentence in terms of the previous part that I just read? And keep asking yourself like how to connect it to the previous sentence. So that's not easy. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's going to for me to teach it like a full version of this, it would take at least several hours just to get through it, because there's so many different skills that are involved here. But that's how. But you have to improve your grammar on the history passages. Okay. Now let's go back to some of the questions here. What's your best strategy on scientific or literature passages? Man, that's a lot. Those are a lot of questions. That simple question is actually a lot of questions, but I'll go back to that in a second. Why there are always 3 scientific passages and 1 literature? Yes, that's true. No, it's always 1 literature. It's always 3 science. And when we say 3 science, it's like 2 hard science and 1 social science. So, Ikora, that's my quick answers to yours in the chat. Let me actually just finish off anything else that's on this page over here. So again, with history, just to summarize, understand the debates that have happened over the course of US history and improve your ability to parse grammar. you will not be able to do this in 5 days. This is 3 days ago, so it might not have come out in a previous stream, but I don't actually have any book recommendations because I haven't read anything since 2016. So what I know is that Khan Academy and UWorld are like the most popular on Reddit. They seem to be the most popular on Reddit. I heard College Panda is good in my Discord server from some people. So that's all I can say right now about the books. I have nothing to recommend personally because I haven't gone through books. In the near future, what I might do is I might go through a couple books and just share my reactions to books, just to share my honest thoughts on what the books say. But that there is one problem with that stream idea. I'm sure it will run into some copyright issues. If I just like stream an entire book, especially for the SAT, like I think they're gonna be really sensitive about it because for them, this is their bread and butter. And if it's all free on YouTube, they're going to be really angry. So I don't think I'll be able to actually do that. I can only give like a sort of a generic review of it rather than like a detailed reactions. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the problem with that idea. Okay, I mean, that's it from YouTube. Let me just double check Discord before coming back to the chat, because that other question Cora asked me is like super hard. I mean, super long. It's a lot for me to say at once. Oh, typos on the QAS. Are there typos on the QAS? No, there are. Yes, there are typos on the QAS. So the reason for that is because QAS PDFs are not published by the College Board, at least not anymore. They used to be back in the day. So back in the day, you would be able to just share the PDF as it was. But I forget what year, but basically recently the College Board has moved all the QASs digitally. And so ever since then, a lot of these QAS files have been basically reproductions of the text. So they would like copy the text from digital and then move it to like a template that looks like a QAS and like kind of rewrite it. And so along that process, these people who are kind of doing this sort of menial labor, they're making some typos every once in a while. The ones on Reddit and the ones that are in my description below, right? Is it in this? I don't think I have it in this description, but basically the ones that I shared, there's like the McElroy tutoring website, and the Reddit links. They don't tend to have that many typos because they kind of filtered out the lower quality ones, but still, there's always a couple here and there. Not a lot, but there's a couple. All right, I'm looking at scoring perfectly on practice tests. No, I haven't been. I have not been. I actually talked about this in my most recent stream, but I've decided to change my streaming. I mean, I've always been tinkering a little bit, but I want to change it up a little bit where instead of talking so much in between the passages, which like actually tires me out while I'm doing it. I'm thinking of doing a sort of unbroken SAT Solve live where I don't stop myself at all. I don't stop the clock at all, and I just go through it straight for 65 minutes. And I'll like mention a couple things that I'm thinking here and there, but I won't it won't even matter if I'm like coherent. Like I'm not even gonna try to be coherent to people. I'm gonna try, but I won't stop the clock just so that people understand what I'm thinking. That's what I'm gonna try today. This is the way I used to do it, months ago. But it's just the reason for this is because I want to show. I'm having trouble right now. Like these streams are like extremely energy intensive. So they're much more tiring than just taking the test quietly by myself and not talking. So I'm trying to show myself getting a 52 out of 52 first of all. I want to show that, or 51 out of 52 at least. And I just want to figure out what the best format for this is, so that's it. No, but I haven't been scoring perfectly, and I mean, you can see all the mistakes. Like, they kind of speak for themselves. They're like either really, really dumb mistakes or actual strategic mistakes. Some of them are ones that I'm actually making bad decisions on, and some of them are like just kind of me not following my own best practices. So let's go back to Ikora's question. So, you said that history is hard for international students, which that's natural. And I don't know if you caught that earlier, but I said I think it should be your lowest priority. You should really focus on the science passages if you're international, unless you happen to just be really good at U.S. history for some reason. So, of course, the earlier question was best strategy for scientific or literature. I literally have to write this out. This is I keep repeating myself for these, but history is a little particular. But with science passages, you and with all passages, you should know the conventions of that genre. So, for literature, you should know the conventions of literature. For history or debates and speeches, you should know the conventions of that genre. And for scientific research, you should know the conventions of that. So, what are the conventions of these things? Okay. For literature, if you're just kind of bad at it, the main thing to understand is conflict resolution and characters. Okay. Just in your head, have a bucket for each of these things and just know what they are. And like think about what they are, try to predict what they will be, and then as you're reading it, like try to have a provisional answer for what the conflict is, what the resolution is, and what is motivating these characters. Okay, that's kind of the basics for literature. For science passages, okay, you want to know. Now, for science, I tend to be a little bit more specific, so I'm going to give like a longer list. But here we go. For science, you want to know the background for what led to the hypothesis itself. Then you want to know the experiment design, or what some people call methodology. Then you want to know results, okay? And in the results, you probably want to also be grouping in the infographics, sort of in your head. You'd be able to like process them. And then the discussion, which sometimes will include many different things. Sometimes it'll include like further hypotheses to expand on, okay, or challenges to the conclusions, challenges to the way that the data was gathered, challenges to the conclusions that are being drawn, whatever challenges, or just further support, or sometimes there's none, right? But what's the discussion around it? But yeah, you need to have those components in your head. They don't always follow the same order, Some passages are kind of creative about it. They kind of switch up the order, but you should just have the basic conventions of science research in your head. And then finally for history, there's like there's the what do you call it in like, I hate using this word, but I'm going to just use it because it's easy. But because like there's ethos, the credential building a little bit, or where the speaker can kind of establish a certain relationship with his or her audience, right? So there's like the ethos bit, which doesn't always show up, but sometimes it's there. And then there's the now these are hard, but like sometimes you have to understand point first versus point last structures of speech, where sometimes you build up towards the point and you don't really say it until the end, and then you have to know, or typically there's point first where you stage a point up front. A lot of times though, it's not as clear cut as that, so you have to understand point first structure a lot. Point last structure, okay? And then you have to get into really claims, reasons, evidence, counterarguments, concessions, rebuttals, and you have to understand the structure of argumentation. So just and be able to figure out where that would all be, how that's all being used. So that's for history. That's specifically for, speeches and debate. You have to understand the structures of that kind of genre of speech. And by understanding these genre conventions, what's the benefit to you? The benefit is that when you're reading, now you're no longer zoning out, being like, what the hell am I reading? You're not just reading at a sentence by sentence level. You're thinking, oh, I think this paragraph is functioning as a concession, which means that this author will probably say like a counter argument to this, okay, at some point. And I think the counter argument is going to be like this. So you can actually predict to some extent what will happen. Not like I actually need to be a little bit more careful with my word predict. I actually mean anticipate. Just sort of be ready for what might happen. So you want to anticipate the kinds of arguments. If it's an argumentative passage, like the history passage, you want to anticipate what kinds of things might come out. So knowing the genres, and then when you actually do that, by the way, when you anticipate the things that will come out, and then you finish reading the passage, what happens is that you remember the passage a lot better. Okay, compared to some student who is just sort of reading it sentence by sentence and being like, God, I don't understand anything. Like, it's much better to be anticipating what will happen and then confirming if it did happen or not, and then being like, oh, okay, it didn't happen exactly the way I thought. Then you feel a little bit of surprise. Then you adjust you adjust your predictions and you anticipate different things, and then you move on. And then by the end, you'll basically remember what the passage was. Yeah, and Ikora says the thing with history that it uses hard language, so he or she leaves it for the end and gives it only 4 minutes. 4 minutes is a little intense. 4 minutes basically means you're going to make a lot wrong. So I would strongly recommend giving yourself at least, worst case is 10 minutes, but it depends on what you're aiming at. I think you said something like you're trying to aim at 36. So actually, maybe if it's 36, you might be, it might actually be worth it. I actually don't know what strategies to recommend for getting a 36 personally. I don't feel a lot of confidence there because I tend to focus on how to get above a 750 on the EBRW. So I don't know what to say about that. But overall, that strategy seems like it makes sense. If you're aiming at 36. Okay, so hang on. So Ikora's question was about how to read science and literature, and then I just added the history on top. Genre conventions is what I was talking about. Read the passage first, predicting what might happen in the passage as you read it, according to genre conventions. Remember as much of it as possible. And then go into the question stem, predict the answer, and then look at the answer choices. That's my overall strategy. Okay. Looking at anything else in the Discord channel. Bunch of people are asking specific SAT questions, which I'm really happy. As you can see, I'm replying as often as I am able. So yeah, guys, if you have SAT questions, just come into the channel whenever you want, the server, whenever you want. And I'm actually about to hit 200 subscribers, which is not something I was expecting. But guys, I'm like 5 away from hitting 200 subscribers. It's my first time I've said anything about subscribers in the last, 3 months or something. But guys, thanks for subscribing. And if you're not subscribing yet, if you haven't subscribed yet, no pressure to click that button, but you could also click that button. Is it here or is it here? Is it here? I think it's here. It's funny because I watch all these other streamers and they do it. Yo, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for the notifications. And I forget what else they say. But anyway, you can do that. Hit me. Let's get to 200. How many times have I taken the SAT? I've taken the SAT at the SAT Center probably around 8 times or so. When I was a kid, I took it twice. And then when I was professionally working as a tutor from 2011 to 2015, I probably took it like 4 times or 5 times or something like that. And then uh, yeah, I took it again in March with the new SAT, just 2 months ago. So around 8 times. But the reason I don't know for sure right now is because the College Board has wiped out my access to all the old SAT data. So I have to go back to Korea where I have my printout scores, like my actual paper scores, and I have to go find them to see how many times to see how many times I took the SAT. They're all in Korea. They're not here in the States where I am, so I have no idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, actually, it's funny. I never got 2400 on the old SAT. I never got 2400 on the old SAT. When I was in high school, I got 800 on reading and 800 on math, but I got 700 on writing because reading and writing used to be two separate sections. I got 700 on writing because I didn't know grammar rules. I never studied them. It wasn't really my focus. So I didn't even know what dangling modifiers are, which are not even that hard. But I just didn't know them. So I made like writing mistakes, which naturally would lead to like a 700 for the writing. So I got 1600 if you only look at the math and reading, which is kind of the classic SAT anyway. But if you include the writing, I only had 700. I got 2300 as 2300 out of 2400 as a high schooler. On my second time, without really studying for the SAT, I just studied for the AP Lang and then sort of naturally got 800 on the reading and on the reading and math. So that was me in high school. And then as a professional teacher, I was never a math teacher, so I would always get 800s on reading and writing, but then just not 800 on the math, and I wasn't motivated to study the math enough. I would just always just go in cold and not remembering formulas and then just sort of winging it. So I would always get something like 2350 or whatever, just because I would always get a couple of things wrong on the math. So no, I never actually got a perfect 2400 on the old SAT, and the new SAT with the 1600 scale, you saw my score. I got what's it, 15. Did I get 1540? Whatever I got, I actually forgot what I got on the March SAT, but I think I got something like 1540, right? Because I made like some grammar mistakes and reading mistakes. So yeah, that was my March score. So yeah, no, actually, I never got a perfect 2400 out of 2400 on the old SAT, and I never got a and I took the new SAT only once. Yeah, I mean, I'm good with the quadratics, and I think trigonometry. Trigonometry never used to be in the original. Like, you never had to know sine cosine in the original Math 1 on the SAT. So I went in to the March SAT with zero studying. So I had not done school math. I mean, I haven't done math in school since like 15 years ago. So it's been a long time. So I still got 770? Because I know how to use, like, when I know the formulas, I know how to use them in my head. I can make transformations very quickly. But my math logic is fine. It's just that I just did not remember what congruence was, or similarity, or like, I just didn't remember these names. Or like, I don't know what a coefficient is still. I have no idea what a coefficient is. Like, I still couldn't. And yeah, I don't know what. I know like sine and cosine, like I think sine starts at 0, but cosine starts at 1, but I don't remember any of these things. So yeah, I have to go actually brush up on my memory, and I should probably do that starting today, because I'm gonna take the test in 4 days. So yeah, 5 days. So I'm gonna take the test in 5 days. So I gotta brush up on my math, and I want to get a 1600 this time. All right, I think that's it for office hours. I'm really groggy this morning, so I want to get like thank you. I keep forgetting what that is. Coefficient is the 2 and 2x. Amazing. Thank you. I also didn't know what a polynomial was until like a day or two ago, when somebody just told me. You guys are all teaching me math right now. Yeah, but anyway, I'm a little groggy. I feel really out of it right now. I want to like have like a little walk, maybe eat something, and get started on my day. So that's it for office hours. I'll write out my full comments in the YouTube thing, and I guess I should write my tips for genre conventions and my specific tips for history in my page, in my Notion page. I'll share that Notion page in a second here. Where was it? So I'm gonna pile all of my feedback over here into this link. So I'll update it with the thing that I said about literature, history, and science. So guys, you can go and look for the updates within the day. All right, guys, gonna go. Peace out.